How's it going, Blue Air Nation? This is Connor Smith and Shane Pickering from GoMiddle.com. We're here outside the beautiful SAPC after Coach Mason's Monday press conference. Shane, they talked about the Marshall game, what went right, what went wrong, and then moving forward to Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State, good opponent. I know they're 2-2, but they've won 2 games in a row. Play sound defense, got a good quarterback, good offense, a lot of playmakers. It's a team that will certainly present a lot of challenges to Middle Tennessee. Starting with the quarterback who ran for 100 and then threw for 100 last week against Arkansas State in a win. Shane, talk about him. What you see, what he can do this MTSU defense, and how they need to attack that.
Yeah, dynamic offense from Kennesaw State. They can push the field vertically in the passing game, but maybe the biggest weapon of all for that team is their quarterback, who ran over 100 yards against a good Arkansas State team last week. His legs present a true weapon for that offense. And, Jerry Mack comes from a coaching tree, including Josh Heupel, who wants to space you out, who wants to get sideline to sideline, and part of that includes using the quarterback in the run game, and they really used that last week. And that's something that's been a challenge for this defense for MTSU, is containing dual threat quarterbacks. We talked to Brandon Buckner, and he said what needs to change to help contain those dual threat quarterbacks is just keeping them in the pocket, and that happens from maintaining your gap, maintaining your leverage, just doing what the coaching staff assigns you on that play, not over rushing, not trying to do someone else's job, just sticking to your one job. And Kennesaw State and MTSU's defense has the talent and the playmakers to do that. But so does Kennesaw State, and they can match up with MTSU quite well.
Yeah, the Kennesaw State defense, it's not a sexy unit. They don't get a lot of turnovers, only 9 sacks so far. Like I mentioned, 1 turnover, but they play really sound football. They're good in their gaps. They're good setting the edge. They've been good against the run. Just a lot of really good stuff. Like I said, won't blow you off the stat sheet with their amount of turnovers and sacks, but they don't allow a whole lot of yards. They've been pretty good point wise, around that 17 to 20 mark last 2 weeks, and they do their job. And everyone's bought in. So that's certainly a unit that MTSU will have to prepare well against, because if they don't come with their P's and Q's, Kennesaw State can force them into messing up sometimes. But I will say that they've got a really good linebacking core that could cause issues. Talked to Nick Vadiato about pushing the ball down the field, since, like we said, no interceptions, 1 fumble recovered this year. He said it's really not about that. It's more about doing their job, and if the challenge presents where you can push the ball down the field, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think both sides of the ball are looking to just do their job for consistent 4 quarters this week, and that includes keeping the ball away from the opponent in the time of possession aspect. Marshall had the ball for 14 more minutes than MTSU, and that wore down on the defense. That's something that's going to need to change. We talked to Derek Mason on Saturday. We talked to Nick Vadiato today, and they're going to have to run the ball effectively to get into more manageable third down situations, and that's just something they're going to have to commit to. Kennesaw State, they don't necessarily run the ball that great outside of the quarterback, but they commit to it. They keep the run game going. That runs the clock. And the explosivity of this offense is there for sure. But when you run the ball, you can generate more explosive plays with the defensive backs coming up. Derek Mason said this is a very heavy zone defense, and running the ball should maybe bring those defensive backs up. And they have big defensive backs as well. So if you can maybe create leverage situations for the receivers against the defensive backs to get better opportunities, that would be important in this game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just running the football more in general. When you look at it against Marshall, Ricky Hunt Jr. and Jaquel Middlebrook had, I think, 7 or 8 touches on the ground.
Yeah,
that's not enough. I mean, this is one of the best running back cores in Conference USA. You have the Thunder and Lightning, duo with them, with Jaquel being that explosive, dynamic guy, and then Ricky. He's explosive too. He can make some plays, but also he's a guy
that can also run somebody over.
He will run through. he will run through a what's face.
Yeah.
So they're a dynamic unit. They totaled nearly 14 yards a touch against Marshall. I think that's a unit that you've got to get them more involved. I mean, just from, like you said, trusting the running backs and establishing a run game, but also keeping your quarterback Nick Vadiato upright, because if they know you're not going to run the football, then those defensive linemen and linebackers can pin their ears back and just go straight at him. So if you run the football effectively, or at least 3-4 yards of carry to where they have to
enough to keep them guessing.
Yeah, just keep them honest. that opens up the passing game, opens up everything else for Middle Tennessee offense. They've gotten better at that throughout the season. I think this game was an outlier because if you look at it, the touch numbers for those two guys have gone up, except for Marshall. Maybe this was an outlier game. Maybe they'll run the ball more against Kennesaw State. Who knows? We'll have to find out this Saturday. Kickoff from Atlanta is 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Thanks for watching.